Anyway, stay tuned and we'll hope you enjoy it. Righto, let's turn all this gear on. Alright, so what we're going to do first, I guess, is we're going to just connect all this up. So I guess we'll start with the basics. So I've got a Microbrute over here on the left, and that's plugged into the first analog input here. So let's give that some volume. And I don't have any other inputs up until channel 5.6, which is that little 3.5mm stereo input, and I've got the Novation Circuit over here connected. So let's have a listen. And it's just a factory session going on there. Okay, so nothing is connected via MIDI. So the back of the circuit is this MIDI cable here, and it is not being used yet. So that's not even synced up. Let's head over to the laptop here. It's a Windows 10 laptop, and at the moment the mixer, Ableton, sorry, let's just get this. So here's the USB cable out of the MX-1, not plugged into anything. And as you can see on the screen of Ableton Live, it says audio is disabled. That's a standard error when it doesn't have an audio device to connect to. You get that little red thing down the bottom here. So let's plug that into the USB port. Okay, you get the drivers from the Roland website and go to Products and MX-1, click Downloads, and you'll see drivers for Windows 10. Now, just hold off on that for a sec. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But then there's drivers for OS X and older versions of Windows 8 and 7. Now, there's actually no driver for Windows 10, and the reason for that is when you plug your MX-1 in, Windows then goes off to their driver store and pulls the driver down. So you don't actually need to download and install the driver if you have Windows 10. But for those who have got OS X and Windows 8 or Windows 7, you'll need to download and install these drivers here. So let's go into the settings, and you just hit Control, on Windows and Command, on a Mac. And let's go into Audio and enable MX-1 there. Now, I'm going to show you guys how to set up the input and output config. We've got the first 4 channels are mono inputs. So let's go 1 and 2, 3 and 4 are mono. But we can also, in the settings of this, we can also dual channel these, so that it will act on one fader, and you can actually make them as a stereo input, but more on that later. So that's why they're both mono and stereo in here. And all of the rest of the inputs, including 5 and 6, which is another analog input, are all stereo. So that's why it's like that. Output config is coming out of 17 and 18. So it's easy to work out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 7 and 18 output is the main mix. So it also sends it over USB, and it also sends it out, the analog audio cables now. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to set up sync, the MIDI sync. So Ableton will make this as the master. So I guess before we start getting into what this mixer can do in Ableton, this is the basic setup. This mixer is in a standard mixer mode, which is the default mode it comes when you turn it on. In the MIDI settings on the laptop, you set your MX-1 as a control surface. You don't have to, but it's good to do that. And then down in your MIDI ports, you set MX-1 to on, and on the 3 columns, on the input and on the output. And then I also suggest that you set your USB 1, USB 2, USB 3 and USB 4 to on. Don't worry about USB control, just do it as those. And you can also do the same for USB output, like that. Done. That's it. Now, this is where the magic happens. So let's do that. Circuit sound. Now we know circuit is coming in on inputs 5 and 6. Change the monitor to in, and voila, there she comes in. All right. So what do you do in here? Well, what I recommend is setting up a template. And I've talked about this on previous videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 plus 7. So we're going to have 11 inputs, and I'll tell you in a sec why. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we'll start from the left. It's going to be input 1, input 2, input 3, input 4. Then we do 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10. This is getting boring, sorry. I'll probably, you guys get the idea, right? All the way up to the 17 and 18. Let's configure these all as ins. Dum, 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 dum. Sorry about my mouth sound effects. Dum, 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 you know. Now we should see 1 working now. Beautiful. And then 5 and 6 over here. And both. Great. So what I then suggest we do is we save this live set as a template, and let's call this MX-1. Right, this is just the very, very basics. Okay, so why do I suggest we do that? Well, let's close Ableton Live and let's open it again. This time it won't come up with that hardware error, and let's open that template. Now, the first thing I suggest you do is do not save over this. So the first thing you would do is go File, Save Live Set As, and then let's call this Ranzy's Setup Vid. Cool. Whatever you want to call it. Now, when you go into Ableton Live, every time you're doing a new on and you're using the MX-1, you can just keep opening that template and save it as another session and just keep going. You're not actually saving over your default one. And if I go back in, I've got my another session there and Ranzy's live setup vid. Bang, bang, bang. We're all good. So keep that MX-1 crisp without anything in it. Let's connect some gear up. Now I want to connect up a couple of boutiques because this, I think, is the first myth that I keep hearing. The myth is people think that you can only use one boutique in the MX-1 because the MX-1 has got a single powered USB port, and that's not true. and I'm going to prove it to you because here I've got two boutiques. I've got, let's move the mouse out of the way. I've got the Juno, or the JU06, the Juno copy, which I'm just putting just here so you can see it just out of, you'll see the keyboard here. And I've got the boutique. Now both of these are completely unplugged, so let's grab some cables. And we're going to need a couple of cables here. So it doesn't really matter which one I choose to go in, but on the back of the MX-1 here you'll see the powered one is the top right from accessing it here. Because that one's not powered, and if we plug that into the back of the boutique here, we're not getting any power, and you can see that it's not lighting up. Now this one here, let's get this one in and plug that one in, and this one you should see light up when I turn it on. This one is working, and to prove that, this is going to be USB 3. Let's choose a bank. Okay, there it is, working. So let's tuck that away so I can use my mouse. So how do we get this one to work with only one USB input on here, which is going to be taken up by that? Well, what we're going to need is one of these. We're going to need to use, this is actually stolen from my Arturia Beatstep Pro, and it's called a USB ground loop adapter. And what you'll notice on here is one says PWR, which is short for power, and the other one says PC. So what we're going to do is, instead of plugging that in the back, we're going to plug that one into the PC slot like that. And get it the right way around for a start. And I'll just leave that dangling there for a sec. And we're going to need another cable. Okay, let's... I need the longer cable. Alright. I just happen to have a long cable and a short cable. And because the MX-1 is so close to it, I'm going to use the black one, which is the shorter cable, to go to the MX-1 here. And the long cable will run down the back. And you plug this into any of those mobile phone charger type jobbers. And we have power. Let's start this thing. And by magic, we have audio going through that USB cable. You can see the back of this, there's no trickery, it's just one MIDI connection. It's using that adapter. You can see that adapter is connected in to the MX-1. And it's connected in, look, there's the TB-03. No, let's make it. The other cool thing is both boutiques are also now synced up to PC because this is telling it to. So if I press play over here on the laptop, bang, off she goes. You can see that light start, and then I press stop, and it stops there. So not only are we getting around that single powered bus problem that everyone thought was the myth, just by using one of those cool adapters. Now I'll put a link in the description of where to get mine from. Now I will warn you, if you buy this from Arturia, you're going to need some money. Go to look at eBay or AliExpress or Alibaba, or all those sort of places. You'll probably find cheaper. Okay, but make sure that it's definitely a ground loop adapter, because it splits power one way and data the other way, because USB works on a kind of in a funky way. But that's working beautifully. Myth busted. So I had to do that. All right, so the other myth was that you could only use AIRA, AIRA. This MX-1 is an AIRA product line. The TR8 is an AIRA product, right? It works with boutiques. They're not AIRA products. It works with the JDXI. Okay? Alright, so that's the other myth busted. Now we've got a problem where this puppy over here, the circuit, crikey, it doesn't have sync. How do we sync it? Obviously I'm holding a MIDI cable. How do we get MIDI from our DAW, because it's controlling these babies? How do we get it to control this? Well, we need a MIDI cable. But how is this laptop telling this? You know, it's all kind of confusing. What do I do? How do I plug it in? These are all the questions I get asked thousands of times on my channel. Now, if I just had one MIDI device like this over here, and that's all I wanted to sync up to my DAW, I could just plug that straight into the MIDI out, which is the right hand side there. In fact, we'll just do that. MIDI out into MIDI in. That's tight. Now we have MIDI going from the DAW to the MX-1 via just the USB connection, which I can control inside my DAW, because we remember before we set up, if you look here, we set up all the MIDI here. So I can actually tell, you know, USB 3 here, I can actually make a MIDI track play on USB 3, which in this case is the Juno, the JUO6, right? But also I can tell the MX-1 to send MIDI out, okay? And I just choose, if I create a MIDI channel on this puppy, let's go into here, right click, insert MIDI track, there it is there. And if I say I want a MIDI output to the MX-1, right, it will send MIDI straight to the Novation circuit, okay? If I want to say I want MIDI straight to USB 3, it'll send it to the JUO6. And so far all I've got is one MIDI cable plugged in. That's cool. I mean, obviously you need Roland gear to do all the USB fancy chancies, but what if I want more than one that connected to this that's got MIDI? Well, here's the beauty. If you use one of these puppies, a MIDI Thru box, right? So if I took the MIDI out of that and plugged it into one of the outputs on here, and I plugged that into my MIDI out here, okay, so you can still see it's there. It's kind of a bit, sorry, it's a bit messy, guys. I can now connect more than, well, in this case I can connect another 3 more products, and this one here has got a MIDI input on it, okay? And let's find the MIDI input port. It's there. Try not to touch that because that's my recording. Let's go all the way neatly somehow, and we'll plug that in to one of the other MIDI ports. Now, you might say to me, but that doesn't really solve the problem, because now you're going to send the same MIDI out to 2 devices. Well, yeah, but you can set these devices to listen on specific channels. So that's to say, with the circuit, we know that it's got a synth, a synth, and a drum part. So the synth is usually 1, 2, and the drum part is usually 10 on the circuit. So we could choose this as MIDI channel 3. Okay, and then you've got this being controlled. But in my case, I just want the MIDI clock to start. So this will actually start the sequencer. Alright, what's left? We've done analog inputs, we've connected them up, we've done MIDI, we've done USB, we've proven the boutiques work, more than one boutique works. We can show, okay, what about the modes? So to change mode, this is in mix mode, turn the mixer off, hold down gain, then you turn it on, and then I think you press tone, and over here it says mix. Change it to SIRS control surface, and X is EX for external. We're going to go EXT, and then you press start stop. It changes the settings. The mix is now in live mode. Now you go recall and store, and it changes it to live mode here. That's it, you're in live mode. Now this becomes a control surface for Ableton Live.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's more of this stuff to come. Stay tuned, please subscribe, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this stuff, because it tells me that I'm doing a good job. It takes a while to set up this gear, and like I said to you in previous videos, I don't get sponsored by anyone. This is completely off my own bat. You know, if you like it, let me know with a thumbs up. Much appreciated. Catch you later.